Hello, this is Steve from Beato's Leatherworks, and today's project is, well, we're going to have a few projects going on at the same time. We've got 4 pairs of shoes, which we're going to do Dainite soles on. Dainite's a rubber sole. We've got a pair of Churches, Alan Edmond Cornwallis, Florsheim shoe, Florsheim Imperials, and another Alan Edmonds. Which one is this? Well, I'm not sure which one this is, but this is the Chukka boot, I think, the suede. So we're all going to do Dainite soles on all 4 pairs. So I figured that I would do them all at the same time to speed up the process. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so basically before I start, I remove all the laces. I take the insoles out and I put numbers in them. And attach all the numbers, laces, the tickets together. So when I get done, I'll have matching insoles, laces to each shoe. Now, I do a lot of shoes at the same time, and I have to do that, unfortunately, because that's about the only way you're going to keep track of what's what. And one thing you don't want to do is confuse what repairs are with which one, obviously. Makes it a little bit difficult to get things done that way. Now, all these shoes are going to do Dainite soles, okay? Dainite soles are rubber soles. They're made in, it's British product, okay? British made. And it adds a lot of traction, basically, to the shoe, because it's not slippery. And they have this dotted pattern right there. Now Vibram does make whatchamacallit, a similar product, similar pattern. This is my heel gel, by the way. That's why I'm having a hard time removing it. I put a little bit of a turpentine to release the glue. Alright, so both layers come out. So anyway, lost my train of thought. All these are going to get Dainite soles. I think we're going to get rid of that piece right there. That was a top lift piece along with the heel base. We're just putting a new one on there because times are wasted. You don't want to sit there fight with a pair of heels. It's the last thing you want to do. It's going to cost you a couple dollars more, but the time that it's going to save you is worth it. Now, most of the time, these shoes, when I work on shoes, I try to do them a few pairs at the same time, because it wouldn't be. I mean, you can't just do one pair at a time. You can't. You got to do like an assembly line. You got to take all the soles apart. You know, prep everything, pick the stitches, sand them. It's much quicker that way. Now, in my last video, I had a couple of comments saying that the video quality wasn't that great, and it was you know, uploaded on 1080p, right? Which is pretty high resolution, I thought. Well, it turns out that when you're recording this way or this way, the front and back camera, the front camera has a less of a resolution. I had no idea. I really didn't. And here I was happy that I had a newer phone that the, you know, whatchamacallit, the video quality was going to be better. Well, surprise, surprise, it wasn't. So now I'm videotaping with the front camera. But the problem is, when you're videotaping this way, right, you can't watch yourself to see what you're doing. So every time I record something, I've got to go back to see that what it recorded, you know, if it looked okay, if it didn't look okay, or I got to do it over, you know. So hopefully this will be better than my last video that I uploaded. Alright, so the midsole is off. We're going to cut these stitches. So basically to do that, we're going to pick the stitches from the welt area there, and then and keep going with the other shoes. Alright, let's continue. Alright, we are going to start the Allen Edmonds now. Now what I normally do is I score at that line right between the sole and the heel base to release the glue. This is not really cutting anything, it's just kind of separating the two pieces together, so when you're lifting it up you don't do damage. Now we're going to reuse this heel base. Now if we damage it, I'll put a new one on, no big deal. But we're going to try to salvage this as much as we can. Usually when I don't score it, that back pieces always get stuck to the shoe, and then it falls apart. Okay. Now, some people replace the heel base with a leather base, which is fine. You know, it's not a bad idea. But the problem is that when you're replacing that with the leather heel base, you have to make sure that you mimic the same shape as the heel, right? The inside part of the heel, which we call, this is the inside part of the shoe, is a little bit higher than the outside part. This gives it arch support. It's a little high on this spot. It raises this area up a little bit so your arch doesn't sink down. When you replace it with a regular heel base, if you don't do that, then you're going to alter the fit of the shoe, which you don't want to do. When you're repairing shoes, you want to make sure that you don't change the structure of the shoe. That's a big no-no, because that's the worst thing they could do when you're repairing something. I mean, after you're putting all this time into it and the customer's spending the money into the project, you want them to be able to wear it for many years to come. When you alter the feel of it, well then it's not going to be comfortable, right? So about a month ago I repaired a pair, and it was mailed in. It wasn't Allen Edmonds, it was a Florsheim pair. And it was the customer's favorite shoe, by the way. Some numbers. Never really seen that before. Anyways, the customer's favorite shoe. He contacted me back. He says, Steve, he says, something on the inside is rubbing my foot. Well, I'm like, okay, but we didn't do anything on the inside. Just the soles and the heels got replaced. He says, I'm not sure what it is, but he says they used to be very comfortable and now they're not. They were my favorite shoes. So that's why I go back into saying that try not to change the fit of the shoe, the structure of the shoe. So anyway, I told the customer, I said, listen, send it back. I'll pay for the shipping, no worries. I'll figure out what's going on with the shoe, because basically I want him to get many years of use out of it, you know? That's why we do these jobs, and that's why the customers spend the money for us to do these jobs. So he sent them back, and and I noticed there was a hump right there, right? It was really puzzling because again, there was nothing done on the inside part of the shoe, you know. So I said, all right, I'll figure something out. I removed the sock liner and I grinded that area down. I just kind of leveled that surface right in there so it wouldn't be a hump. And I cut him a new pair of insoles, put some padding underneath the insoles. Normally I don't replace the insoles. These insoles, right, if they're good, I reuse them. Now if the customer requests for me to replace it, I will. However, sometimes they have logos on them and customers don't want to lose that original insole. So I'll only replace them if it's okay with the customer that we talk about ahead of time. Anyway, so I put a pair of new insoles in there for him, new leather insoles with some padding, and I shipped it off. So everything is good. But the point is that, you know, when you start changing the shoe structurally, you should be able to change it, you know, the way it was when you're putting a new heel block on. Allen Edmonds are pretty easy to pick stitches because they're wide stitches, right? And some shoes have a lot smaller stitches. This particular one was very easy. We could remove and clean them up. Now, not all shoes are a good candidate for this sole. If it's a really narrow toe and small foot, it's very difficult to put that pattern in the center and make it look right. I think all of these that we're looking at are pretty good candidates. I think that'll be okay. I did a pair last week. It was a size 7, very small foot, and the smallest I had was a size 9 sole. These come in different sizes: 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I don't know if they make an 8. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, because I never really bothered getting a smaller sole. Anyway, it was a pretty tight fit. I mean, it worked out pretty good, but it was a little bit of finagling to do to make sure that pattern was in the middle. Now, it's not that structurally, it's just for looks, you know, it's just visual. I think it just looks better to have that pattern in the middle rather than the stitches going over the holes there. Believe it or not, some manufacturers, when they stitch it, they'll go over through that and have it cockeyed a little bit, which isn't good. I mean, aesthetically it looks terrible. And some of them they don't countersink their stitches, right? They just stitch it and sits on top of the sole. Well, when you wear that one time, that stitch is going to break, which is not a good thing. I make sure that I countersink my stitches so there's no issues for it to fall apart. It'll wear. You'd have to wear through about half the sole before you get to the stitch. So in my last video, somebody apparently as I was cutting the midsole on a pair of Alden boots, the knife happened to just catch the toe a little bit. Luckily it didn't cut it, you know. It grazed just over on top of the stitch. So I had to touch it up a little bit, but I guess a couple of viewers slowed that video down and saw that I nicked the shoe. They're like, nice nick on the 8 minute 56 second area. And I had to look at it myself because, you know, I didn't know it was on video. All right, so it's okay. It happens sometimes. I'm not perfect. You see the welt coming loose? So we've got to basically restitch that, secure that back before we put the sole on. All right, we'll do that a little later. Let's continue. All right, now we are on the churches. Some nice shoes. A little bit of staining in the back. I think this comes from driving sometimes, right? Your heel's down and it gets rubbed over time and loses the color. Now this particular one, it looks like the customer did a DIY home repair. It looks like there's some sort of a epoxy of something build up in the corner there. When the leather is fleshy like that, that's not a good sign. Because manufacturers will use every part of the cow to make their products, right? And I guess some of the less of quality they'll use like on the heels and stuff like that. But it's not good. It's, you know, unfortunately. Now, it's a good heel base. It's a solid heel base. It is a little loose though. Okay. So we're going to take that apart like that, sand the surfaces and re-glue everything back, making sure it's structurally sound before we put it back together. Because if you don't, because the leather is loose and it starts rubbing against each other, and it'll start squeaking. So you don't want to do all that work and then the customer's wearing it and it starts to squeak. Then you got to take all the heel off and do the job all over again. That's not good. So might as well do it right. Like you got it off the shoe, and so you don't have to do it all over again. This back piece we're going to salvage. That's called the heel rand. That piece right there, because it has that nice curvature shape. Because when you put the new leather sole on, that's going to follow that shape, and that shape is the same as the heel block. So if you were to change this, again, you have to make it exactly the same so everything that's following it will fit properly. Now the shank is still in good shape. Okay, we'll use that over again. This cork we're going to replace, even though it doesn't look too bad. In some areas, let's put some turpentine on here to loosen that glue. In some areas, when cork gets compressed, it becomes thinner, especially on the high point of the foot, like the ball of the foot where your big toe is. So all those areas usually will get compressed. So in the middle areas, the cork is very thin compared to the outer areas, right? So it needs to be all even, same thickness. Now over time of you wearing the shoe, it'll kind of compress a little bit, and it'll take shape to your foot. But when we're doing this, you got to re-cork it and start all over again. All right, let's continue. All right, time for the Allen Edmonds Chukka boots. These are cool boots. Very soft. No lining on the inside, so once you wear them, they kind of take shape to your foot. No time to break in. I had put French tips on these a while back. Of course, there's always one screw that is damn stubborn. Always. You know what they say, there's always one, you know what, in a crowd. That's alright. We can deal with it, no worries. Remember scoring the heel. This one maybe we'll put a new heel base on there. Oh, I'm supposed to give a shout out to somebody today. Alright, let me find it real quick. I'm like a DJ, you know? Alright, let's see who it is. Oh, lordy, lordy, lord. Okay, I guess it's somebody's birthday, right? Alright. If I could ask a favor, could you give Fig a shout out on a video? His birthday is coming up and I'd love to give him that little surprise. Thank you very much. Either way, we love you. Alright, this is from Carly to Fig, F-I-G. Happy birthday, Fig. I told my buddy I was going to do that. He's like, what the hell? You're shouting out for birthdays now? He said, yeah, no problem. Send $50. I'll do any shout out you want. I'm like, come on, man. You can't do that. You want to charge people for shouting out on your video? He's like, yeah, so what? You're putting the time into it. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, maybe there might be something there, you know? This one's on the house, though. It's okay. So happy birthday, Fig. All right, I'm going to show you guys something real quick. So Alan Edmonds uses large stitches, and it sits on top of the welt. Some manufacturers will countersink the stitches in the welt, and it's very small, you see? And these, we have to hand pick them. Now, with this particular one, we can use the machine. Let me show you real quick. You guys can see this or not. We're going to try. This is a stitch picker right here. I mean, it's not very sharp, but it will do the job. So basically, you can only do this if the stitches are sitting on top of the welt. All right. Now again, it's not sharp. It's not going to hurt your hand or the shoe, but you got to still be careful. But it's very quick to remove the stitches. Now if the welt is loose, it will kind of, come apart. So you got to be careful. Put your hand underneath it and give it some support so you don't put pressure on the welt. And that's it. You see how fast that was? Rather than sit there picking the stitches by hand, this way it's very quick. And it doesn't happen all the time, unfortunately, though. Most of the time, it's a little tricky to pick the stitches and deal with it one at a time. All right, let's continue. Now, when it comes to re-corking the shoe, there's a couple of ways we do it, right? We have these pre-cut pads that we use, or we have these cork sheets we use. Now most manufacturers, they'll have it's called a hot cork, right? It's like a clay, it's like a mush, okay? And they squirt it out on the shoe, and then they'll even it out, okay? Basically, it's like a putty, warm putty, and they'll even it out like this, and then level the surface, and you're done. Well, repair shops don't have machines like that, so we do the alternative. The only thing that you need to worry about that you're filling a cavity in, whether it's with these pieces, the sheet, or the hot cork, it's leveling the surface out. Okay, so you don't necessarily need the hot cork to do that. It's a cool machine to have, but it's not a necessity. So now, with these soles here, okay, basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the old sole and then basically mark this, okay? Make sure that the name is centered, and then wherever you're marking the sole, that pattern needs to be in the center. Now, what do I mean in the center? Obviously the name has to be in the center of the arch, right? When you're doing a Dainite sole, you have to have the spaces here pretty much even. Okay? Now it's not possible in all shapes. Some shapes are very tricky to do. But this is about the best way to do it to keep this pattern in the center of the shoe. So you mark your outline, and then you go ahead and cut it a little bit wider than the mark that you made. So when you go ahead and when you go to glue your shoe, the sole on the shoe, you glue it, you know exactly where it's going to be, just like that. If it's going to be, it's going to be cut maybe about 1/8 of an inch, a little bit more wider than the actual shape. Because you pre-cut the sole already. Now that's why when it's in this shape, you don't know where to put it, right, left. It's not going to happen. But when it's cut already, a little bit wider than the actual shape of the shoe, then you can position that, and everything will be centered. They're a little tricky to do, so you just have to kind of take your time, mark it right, cut it, pre-cut it, and then continue with the assembly. All right, let's continue. So poor hammer guy. Well, I didn't name him that name. The viewers named him that name. Hammer guy. Oh my God. Poor guy. Maybe he's got issues, man. I don't know. He needs help maybe. Let's reach out. Let's reach out and help him. Hammer guy. I'm sorry. I laugh every time I think about that. Oh, Lord. Anyway. So we're going to continue gluing these. And if I can stop laughing, we'll be back. Oh my God. Once I start laughing, I can't stop. Anyway, okay, let's calm down. Let's get back to work, okay? And let's get some things done. Stop messing around. All right, let's continue. All right, so now we just have to be careful on how we position our soles. Now once we got the soles on, we have to squeeze the glue, if I can speak today, we have to squeeze the welt to the sole and just kind of squeeze the air pockets out, okay? I like doing it this way. There's other ways of doing it. Basically, I've ground down that last to make a little bit of sharp edge to it, so it can squeeze right underneath the welt. And I hammered a welt down to the sole, and now you don't have any more air pockets. All right, once it's here, we're going to put it on the press. All right, let's continue. Now this is called a swing arm press, right? Because the arms, hey, they swing, look at that. All right, and we have a couple of different shapes of, I don't know, feet, I guess you can call it. Now some of them, you see it has leather piece on there, so I put the leather piece on to give it a little bit of an oval shape, like a little bit of round shape. Because I didn't want the shoe, I didn't want it to be so flat. So when it got pressed, it lost its shape a little bit. Alright, put this on here like this. And then we hit the button, it presses it down, makes loud noise. Loud noise coming. Which one? Oh, this one. Let it sit there until maybe about 2 minutes, and then I'll get the other shoe ready, and then this will be ready to remove and put the other one on. Alright, let's continue. Alright, so this is what we're going to do. Now remember, the Florsheim heel has a straight, this is called the breast of the heel, it's not curved. Now these are the new heel bases, okay? So obviously you see there's a curve there. So first we're going to have to straighten that out, okay? Then we put the Dainite heel on there, and we balance it on the shoe. I don't like, usually, a couple of ways of doing heels. Some people attach the base on there, they sand the surface, and then they glue this on and trim the inside part of the heel with this heel cone. Now that's a 24 grit paper. It's very rough. So we're just going to have a lot of rough marks right there, right? So what I try to do, glue these pieces together first, sand it on the smooth part of the sandpaper, make it nice and smooth, put a stain on there, and then go ahead and glue and nail onto the shoe. This way you'll get a much nicer, smoother finish here. Now on the Allen Edmonds you can't do that. So on most of the shoes, once we put the heel base on, we nail it from the inside to secure that together, right? Well, Allen Edmonds, you can't, most of the shoes don't have a sock liner inside. You can't really put nails in there, okay? That's why the heel base goes on first. It's nailed on with shorter nails so it doesn't go all the way through. And then the top lift is glued on, okay? But then you're back in the same situation where you have to sand the inside part of the heel with the heel cone. So before I assemble it together, basically I hold these very secure. Sand them on a smooth sandpaper, make it nice and smooth. Go ahead and stain it, and then this comes off, right? Put it on the shoe, nail it, do whatever you've got to do, and then now when it's time to glue this back on, put it exactly where it was so you don't have to touch that anymore, okay? Now that's a nice smooth heel breast. You don't see all the rough sandpaper marks. So that's how I do it on the Allen Edmonds, because Allen Edmonds, you've got to secure the base first before you put the top lift on. Most other shoes, I'll secure this together and then put it on the shoe. All right, let's continue. Now with some shoes, now this comes as a standard 5/8 inch thick of a heel base, right? You can't use it that thick on this Florsheim because you've got to take into consideration you're putting a heavier top lift, so you got to remove some of the base in order for it to remain the same height. So what we did was we removed one layer from that, okay? This way, when it comes on the shoe, now you still have to balance the shoe. You see how it's teeter-tottering? Well, it shouldn't do that when you're putting new heels on. Now, it's not done yet, so once you glue this together here and straighten that out, then you can sand right inside part here to give it that balance. So when it's all said and done, when you set the shoe on top of the heel and the heel base, you should not have this teeter-tottering. Okay, all right, let's continue. Once we trim the edges, this is a rough trim basically, right? We've got to make that line straight, because when we go ahead and try to put the groove in, that groover is going to follow that line right here. If this is crooked, then the groove will be crooked. Now it's ready to stitch. Let's continue. Alright, now we're going to go and stitch the soles on. Now the top thread, which is actually the bottom of the shoe, since we stitch it upside down, we'll call it the top thread. It's going to be yellow. And this right here basically is the adjustment for the stitch width, right? This particular one, I don't have a gauge or anything, but I just got by the feel. That's a good spot right there. So it should, once it gets stitched, it should go into the same holes. You guys see that? Pretty good. Now on some of the other ones I'm going to change the thread to maybe like a blue or a red. Alright, let's continue. Now with the suedes, I'd like to tape it up a little bit just to protect that, because there's oils into the machine, and I don't want anything touching the suede part getting it dirty. I'm going to do this one with blue. Now the Allen Edmonds stitches are a little bit bigger, right? So we're going to make this, adjust that stitch length a little bit, so make sure that it goes into the same holes. Same original holes. Cool. Let's continue. I usually wipe down the rubber surface with a little bit of turpentine to just kind of remove that grease and the dust, so that surface doesn't get too contaminated when you're getting ready to glue things together. You don't want a dirty surface. Basically, you want to make sure that you don't have any issues with that surface being dirty, because if it's a little bit of oil or something, or air pocket is inside, and eventually it will start coming apart, and we don't want that. Now these two pairs of Allen Edmonds, I put new heel bases on. Okay, these are exactly duplicate of the original Allen Edmond heels that they use. Same manufacturer I got them from. So it's identical to what the manufacturer uses. Now, when you have the heel base and the top lift, the original top lift, which is very thin, okay, now you're replacing it with a Dainite, which is thicker than the original one. Okay, so you can't use this unless you're adjusting the height, okay, because you have to maintain the original height what the customer was used to. So before, and we don't want to remove this rubber piece here, okay, rubber to rubber is much better contact rather than this fiberboard. This is not leather. This is basically a fiberboard, compressed paper, recycled old leathers and paper mixed together, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so instead of removing this top lift to give it that proper height, we went ahead and sanded this from this side and took off maybe about a good 1/8 of an inch. Now we still kept that original shape. You see how one side is higher than the other? That's how it was originally. That's how Allen Edmond uses most of his heel bases, like that. So the trick is that you have to have it same height as what you started with. Okay, can't change the height unless the customer specifies it to change it. Then you can do that. Now these are different here. This Churches and the Florsheims, I've already glued these together, sanded the inside right here. So now what we're going to do, we're going to give it some balance. This one is not too bad. See how it's teeter-tottering still? So this one needs to be sanded a little bit. Okay. All right, let's continue. So basically right on the inside of the heel, I put a little decoration. I don't know why, because I think most manufacturers do that. I figure I'd duplicate it. It's just for aesthetics. It's nothing structural. You guys see that? Kind of looks cool. Like a nice finishing touch, you know? Alright, which one is which? Remember, the inside part of the heel is higher, which is, this is the inside of the shoe. Okay. Now, once this heel base is on, we're going to trim the edges. Okay, we're going to trim these edges here. We're going to balance the heel. This is not it. This is it here. We're going to put this on top and we're going to balance the heel. Then we're going to come back, nail it on, and then glue this on top of here. Okay. All right, let's continue. All right, so we've got the heels on. We're going to put some nails on. Now remember that the base got nailed on first. These are the Allen Edmonds. And then we're going to nail this, the top lift, to the base. Now it's ready to be sanded. We're going to clean the uppers and polish them up. And we're ready to go. All right, let's continue. Son of a gun. The nails underneath them, you know, the nails that I nailed the base with, it looks like they lined up with a couple of the holes for the heels here. So that's why I kind of went a little cockeyed. There's a will, there's a way. Cover your ears, children. It's hammer time. Okay. Okay. No more hammering. Alright, we'll continue later. Now we get to sand the edges smooth. So all we're trying to do is sand the sole and the midsole close to the welt. You don't want to sand the welt too much to change the size of the width. Not the width of the fit, but the width of the sole from here to here. Like the width here like that. So when you're going to sand this, you're going to sand very lightly, just coming close to the welt. so this is 80 grit paper right here, but it's worn off. It's pretty dull. And this one is 120. So after we do the 80, we're going to go over it with the 120. And we're going to wet the surface. And what happens is the leather fibers get wet. When you sand it, it crushes it down and gives it a much more smoother finish. Touch the welt with this one. This is not that rough. See how we notched the corner of the heel right there? So basically the story behind that is that back in the day when the gentleman wore cuffed pants, when that heel was sharp, as they walked, the corner of the heel got caught on the cuff and tore it. So I guess somebody came up with this idea and it kind of stuck. Not too many people wear cuffed pants anymore. If they do, they're up to their shins. So we still do that just for looks. All right, let's continue. All right, so at this point, we're going to use a little turpentine and clean the surface. Not too hard, just lightly rubbing across the surface to get the dirt off, build up polish. This particular pair, this Church's, I think I'm going to have to add a little bit of color. See how it's faded in the back? Same with that right there. Polish is not going to cover that. So I'm going to have to add a little bit of color on it. Other than that, majority of the other ones will be all cleaned up and add some cream polish to it. Condition, wax, shine. Well, except for these right here, except for the suedes. So, all right, let's continue. I'm going to do a shout out today for somebody who sent me cookie from New Zealand. From New Zealand. I can't believe it. A cookie to enjoy with my coffee. Oh, I enjoyed it all right. That was a big cookie too. Thank you. I don't know what the gentleman's name was. It might have been Steve also. I couldn't really make it out on the note he sent it with. Also, these few pairs I have for today. This Florsheim here and the Chukka boot, the Allen Edmonds. The gentleman is going to come pick it up. And yes, I'm going to get his reaction. Finally, you guys can see what the customer will say when they pick up their item. Listen, most of the time these are mailed in, right? So I don't really know what their reaction is, you know, so it's kind of difficult to say. So this way, he's going to come pick him up. So we'll get his reaction. We are done with these pairs. They didn't turn out too bad. On this one I used blue thread. I don't know why, I just used blue, it just looked good. These churches, also with blue thread. Remember that spot in the back? I think it was this shoe here. Dyed that, covered that up a little bit. It's not 100%, but it's much better than what it was. We've got the Chukkas here. Okay. And spray these with the water repellent to kind of protect them. And then we've got the Florsheims. I used yellow thread on this one. I think overall it was a successful day. I still have to glue the insoles in here, but I'll do that. Now these two pairs, well, there's another pair here, but I didn't show you guys in the video. This one is a pair of Meerman. I put French tips on there, Triumph tips. And the customer is going to come pick these 3 pairs up, hopefully in a few minutes. So you'll finally get a reaction from a customer that you guys been wanting. All right, let's continue. All right, this is Mr. Mike right here. He's here to pick up his shoes. Mr. Mike, good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you, Steve.
There's your shoes right there. Take a look them over, make sure everything's good.
Wow, I love this yellow. Man, these Chukkas.
It's your favorite shoes, huh?
Favorite shoes ever. Ooh, blue sole. Blue stitching. Maybe my second shoe ever. Favorite shoe ever. Nice.
That's your French tips right there. It's
French
nice and flush
tip.
like it's supposed to be.
Yep.
Some people make a mistake when they're doing French tips. They usually keep it a little bit higher than what the leather sole's supposed to be, but it's supposed to be flush with the leather.
Well, I'm glad I finally wore some soles out so that I can finally experience your work. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right.
Unbelievable.
You guys got his reaction now. Okay, that's enough. All right. We got to go do business now. We'll continue again. All right, don't forget, if you guys have any questions, you can get in touch with me right here about, okay, and it has all my information right there. Address, the company name, phone number, email, so anything you want to do. And if you want to ship stuff to me, the shipping form right here, click on that, and then the shipping form will be up and you can copy and paste whatever you like to do. All right, any questions you have, please email me. All right, well, thank you for joining me today on my project. We've got 4 pairs of Dainite soles done, 1 pair of French tips, and many more projects to come. So any comment you'd like to make, please do so. Share if you like. And I appreciate you guys joining me again. All right, we'll see you on the next project. Take care.